Hello, my name is Annika Lundqvist, and I'm the founder of Pedestrian Space, an NGO dedicated to issues of walkability and more broadly urban resilience. And at Pedestrian Space, we are right now working on developing an urban heat pilot, what we call an urban heat pilot for the year of 2027. And we've had a really incredible, tremendous response to calls for collaboration. So we are also putting together what I call a network approach and welcoming many people to collaborate, including students all across the world, such as Julia, who I'm here sitting here with. We've been talking before we started recording, learning a bit about her background, very interesting public transit research you've been doing and work. You're an incoming master's student at Columbia Climate School in New York. And yeah, I just want to turn it over to you now, so you could share about your interesting background with public transit, and then we'll connect it up to what we're working with.
Thank you for the introduction. So before Columbia, I was at Wellesley College in Massachusetts, and there a lot of my research focused on how investments and policy in public transit can positively impact public health outcomes. So we looked at, for example, air quality, the move from cars, individual cars, to public transit can help improve air quality. Also like active transportation, so being able to move while commuting has great health benefits. Also safety, public transit is overall more safe than cars. And one of the main those were the main focuses of the project. We didn't look as much at how vulnerability to heat is also impacted by transportation systems, especially how people from lower income communities may rely more on public transit and are often more exposed to these higher temperatures. Um, and also how there's certain infrastructure within the station, but also outside that can expose people to heat, such as less tree canopy or less shaded bus stops when you're waiting, or even not having AC in the subway. Grand Central Station in New York City now has AC in the subway, which I think it's one of the only stations in the city, but it really shows that there is a way to help reduce these heat factors for people who rely solely on public transportation. Um, so through this research, I really understood the intersection between transportation planning and climate adaptation related to heat. And that is something I really want to focus on at Pedestrian Space. I've always loved the public engagement and communication aspect of the climate science. And this was true at like my old job. We were a consulting firm, so we were building new things, new infrastructure, and we had to include the community. And I really like being able to explain the science in an accessible way. And that is what has brought me to Pedestrian Space.
Great. All that is really super interesting and wonderful. And at Pedestrian Space, I would say we're about walkability, but as you know, as all of us working with walkability know, public transit is a huge aspect of that. And I can see how you have a communication background because you sync it all up so beautifully. And I also agree with you that the communication side is and the public engagement side is really interesting. And I think it really not only benefits from, but also demands people like you who really enjoy communicating the science and talking to, um, creating messages for the public to understand why these things are so important. Um, Issues of heat stress, as you were talking about, for example, Grand Central, which is now air conditioned, or heat levels in the subway. It really makes me think about heat stress and public health, which, as we know, urban heat didn't just suddenly become an issue, but now with these like record-breaking temperatures all across the world, it's like headline news, and it's becoming more um, of an issue in the public mind, which unfortunately it's kind of a crisis at this point. But I think it's better late than never that we're now facing it in the public sphere. So I'm really happy to be talking with you and welcoming you to this network and collaboration. And the focus that you bring is so essential. So I wonder if you could share a bit also about, well, you're moving from undergrad into grad. You're an incoming master's student at Columbia Climate School. So
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, well, it would be great to just hear about your application to Columbia Climate School, what you're planning to do there, any anticipatory research.
Sure. So the climate school, I'm in the Master of Arts degree, which they also have a Master of Science, and that degree requires a thesis. This one doesn't. So there are no technically any research requirements, which is why I wanted to pick up something with pedestrian space. But I did really want to focus on public transit and being in New York City. I knew that would be a great place. There's also a lot of professors who have a lot of GIS background, which is something I also wanted to dive into and learn. But my application, they're a very interdisciplinary school, especially the MA degree, and also very global and international. So I have a lot of students in my class who are from basically every country and every continent around the world. So that was really exciting to see. But um, applying, especially, I had an environmental studies background. There were a lot of people in my class who have economics backgrounds or sustainability, which is related, or sometimes like public health. So it's all in the same realm, but um, it's very interdisciplinary, like pedestrian space. And I'm very excited just to meet a lot of new people and learn about their background and how it kind of ties into the public transit lens that I'm looking at in New York, but I want to see around the world.
Yeah, exactly. And when I began to get the responses I did for this pilot, again, I always expect a little bit of a response when I put out calls for collaboration, but the response that I've been getting over the past 2 weeks has been, I mean, it's really been like a flood of emails and people really writing such thoughtful, engaging inquiries, wanting to collaborate. So that's why I really felt motivated and inspired to do this network approach. And I love the fact that people like you are excited to meet others, develop, connections with other students, but also professionals, and established researchers and practitioners all around the world. And maybe also in your local region. We do have at least one other person in New York City, and I suspect we'll have more for this network. So I really, really value the environmental justice lens that you bring paired with the public transit. And before we started recording, we were also chatting a bit about New York City and just this moment in time with this administration, um, which seems to bring some justice energy connecting. I believe I saw something. I didn't do a deep dive and read much about it, but about increasing tree canopy there. So I think it'll be really interesting to also be able to see over the coming, several months through next year, through 2027, when we plan this pilot, what's happening in New York City specifically, because as we know, a lot of these things require thoughtful urban governance, and urban municipal decisions that support things. So, can you share any of your thoughts, um, and or insight, observations about New York City? And also, I think before we started recording, you were sharing also about the neighborhood where Columbia is and tree canopy there. So can you share just any insight or observations from New York City?
So I will say my one fault is that because I lived in Massachusetts, I really focused on Massachusetts laws and Boston's climate laws. So I would definitely have to catch up on my New York City environmental governance. But I will say that this new mayor, this new administration seems to be more responsible in prioritizing funds. And I hope that in addition to some of the tree canopy coverage that has already been passed, there will be more like that, especially today in New York. It's pouring, and I know that New York City's drainage system cannot handle, I'm sure, what came down this morning. It was so heavy and it was storming. And so I'm sure that the administration will prioritize infrastructure such as a drainage system. And then also, it's not equal across the city. Of course, it's a huge city, and I'm only talking about Manhattan here, but where Columbia is located, it's just in kind of South Harlem on the west side of the island. And it's also just above the Upper West Side, which is a very famous and very wealthy neighborhood. So It's in a certain area where the school itself is very nice and kind of its own little ecosystem. But the surrounding area is not as great. There's definitely not as many resources allocated to that neighborhood, to those neighborhoods over there. And that's something I've noticed. I'm moving to the area and coming from Midtown or coming from the Upper West Side, you can see how the neighborhood changes and how um, there's less tree canopy, there's darker infrastructure, there's been less of a focus on reducing urban heat. And that is something I would really like to research while I'm living there.
Well, perfect. We really are happy to welcome you to this network, and I'm glad you wrote. I find your background really interesting. I appreciate any work that really coherently puts together issues of public transit, public health, um, and equity issues, and you're doing just that. So I think it'll be really great to have you in the network and see what you do in New York City. So thank you.
Thank you.